Good afternoon, my friends. Hi, everybody. I hope everyone is doing well. I am super excited about this video today. This is something that I've been wanting to do for a long time, and since I posted my last video on the 3 different cookie recipes, I figured now would probably be a good time to share this with you guys. I am a stay-at-home mom and I bake on the side here and there, and I've been doing this for about 9 years or so, but it took me quite a bit of time to learn some of these things, and a lot of the things that I share on my channel are things that I've either learned along the way or things that I've learned on my own just by tweaking recipes. I figured probably a good time for me to show you my royal icing recipes. This is something that I've been wanting to do for a long time now. I think I even promised it on a couple of my videos, and I just haven't had a chance to get to it. But today is the day. I wanted to share with you the different types of royal icings that I use on my cookies and which one I like the most. I wanted to also share the cookie icing that you can get off the store and whether you should use it or not, or what you can do so that it works better for you. The first icing I'm going to share with you guys is my original classic royal icing. This is my go-to. It's easy, simple, and it tastes delicious. We're going to need 3 tablespoons of meringue powder, 5 tablespoons of warm water, 1 can of white royal icing from the shelf, I got mine at Walmart, and 4 cups of powdered sugar, plus a couple of ingredients that I'll show you later. What I like to do is I like to get my powdered sugar and my meringue powder in my standing mixer, and I like to mix it up a little bit. Then I'm going to add the 5 tablespoons of water into my sugar and meringue powder. I start off on medium speed until the sugar starts to dissolve into the water, and then alternate up to high speed and let it beat for 7 minutes on medium speed until you have stiff peaks. If you need to, in between mixing, you can scrape down the sides of the bowl to fully combine the sugar. At this point, your peaks are going to be so stiff you can use this royal icing to pipe rosettes or something like that onto your cookie, but there's not going to be any flavor and it's going to be really sweet. So I add a can of Wilton Royal Icing and I let that mix until it's fully combined. To flavor my royal icing, I add some salt to tone down the sweetness, some freshly squeezed lemon, I only use about a half of a lemon, and 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. And at this point, you can use any flavoring that you like. And you're just going to mix that again until it's fully combined. Your royal icing is no longer going to be stiff. It's not going to have a thinner consistency, but this is going to be your base. So I like to put the majority of it in another container and set it aside for later use, and only use enough that I'm going to put in a piping bag, and then I'm going to add a little bit of water to it until it's at a thinner consistency to flood my cookie. I add very small amounts of water at a time, and to do this I use a dropper. Using a dropper helps me so that I don't add too much water. I want my icing to be thin enough to flood a cookie, but not so thin that it falls off the cookie. I also don't want it to be too thick, otherwise it won't settle evenly across the cookie. I also want to be able to flood and outline my cookie without having to use 2 different icings. So I'm only going to add enough water until the consistency of the royal icing is effortlessly falling off the spatula in a fluid motion. See how the icing is fluid and falls down without stopping, and once it hits the icing in the bowl, it just kind of melts in together. That's when you know your icing is perfect. I'm also going to color it by using this Meringue color in red, and I'm just going to mix it up until I have my desired red color. Okay, so the second recipe that I have, if I don't have my meringue powder, I can use egg whites. I got a 1/4 cup plus 2 tablespoons of egg whites, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, and 4 cups of powdered sugar, plus other ingredients that I'll show you later. You're going to add your egg whites into the mixing bowl, and you're going to mix it on medium to high speed until it's nice and frothy, and this may take up to 10 minutes. Once your egg whites are frothy, you're going to add in your powdered sugar just a little bit at a time, and this just keeps your powdered sugar from flying out of your bowl. Occasionally, you may need to scrape the sides of your bowl to make sure that all the sugar is being fully combined. To flavor, you're going to add in a half a teaspoon of salt and 1 teaspoon of vanilla, and continue mixing on medium to high speed while scraping down the sides of the bowl as needed. At this point, my consistency was a little too thin, so I added in 1 more cup of powdered sugar and freshly squeezed in a half of a lemon. Turn your speed up to high and let it mix for a good 5 to 7 minutes. Just like your original recipe, this is going to be your base, so take out the majority of it and put it aside for later use, and keep what you're going to use in your piping bag. Follow the same steps that you used in the original recipe to thin out your royal icing for flooding consistency. You can also make the same exact recipe using 3 fresh eggs. A lot of people are not comfortable using egg whites from an actual egg because it's not pasteurized. They think there's a lot of bacteria in it. But I've looked in over the years and I realized that when you add powdered sugar to the egg whites, it's safe to use. Fun fact, I also worked for an egg company probably about 18 years ago, and I used to look at the eggs underneath like a red light, and they would shine through the egg shell, and you'd be able to see the inside of the egg, and you could tell if the egg is good or not based on if there's like blood in it or the egg is fertilized. And not only that, but I also learned that a lot of the bacteria is not in the egg white or the egg yolk, it's on the shell itself. But once you wash the egg, the bacteria is being washed off. And so that's what they do to process their eggs before they sell it to the grocery stores. So in my opinion, you don't have to take it. Using egg whites from a shell is perfectly safe to use when you're making royal icing. So the last thing I want to show you is the cookie icing. I meant to get white, but I accidentally picked up blue. Let's open this up and let's pour this inside of our bowl here. Honestly, I don't like using the cookie icing from the store. It has a little bit of a gelatinous texture when you open it. So decorating with this is definitely not going to be an easy thing, but if you were just going to fill a cookie, it would work. It dries pretty hard. It dries the same as regular royal icing. Let's look at the ingredients and see what's inside of this. So it has sugar, corn syrup, water, and like coloring, citric acid, salt, xanthan gum, and that's just to thicken it. Vegetable gum, potassium sorbate as a preservative, and artificial flavors. So I don't even see vanilla, I don't see powdered sugar, I see regular sugar, I don't see powdered sugar. So it's not made the same. Comparing this icing to the icing that I just made, you can see the difference. It kind of crackles a little bit. It does have a very, very like thin consistency, but it's also very syrupy and sticky like. So it's not going to work the same as a royal icing. But if you needed to use this in a pinch, my suggestion would be add a little bit of powdered sugar to this. And if you didn't know, powdered sugar has cornstarch in it. So I'm going to start off 1 tablespoon at a time for 1 tube of cookie icing. This icing is going to be very sweet. It's not going to taste the same as the homemade kind. I'm going to put a little bit more in there because it looks like it needs more. I just want this to kind of thicken up a little bit. A lot of people like to use the icing from the store because it's already colored for you, and you get those dark, rich colors that you can't normally make on your own using gel food coloring. But we're going to add more powdered sugar until I get a good consistency. You could also put this in a hand mixer. Actually, I think I'm going to do that. Let's do that, just so that it's a lot easier to mix. Okay, I think we can work with that. We only added about 3 tablespoons of powdered sugar in this. So let's see what happens when we put it in a piping bag, and let's flood a cookie. Okay, so I set up another camera over here because I want to get a close-up view of the cookie. See, it has that like gelatinous texture to it, even with the extra powdered sugar in it. I think that's because it has the corn syrup in it. And this may take a little bit longer to dry. So you're gonna want these to dry overnight. Once you're done with them, let them dry overnight. I wouldn't put this in a dehydrator because of the corn syrup. It might not dry it properly. But if you want to try, you let me know. So I'm just gonna tap on the cookie to even it out a little bit. And there you have it. You have a nice iced cookie. Your cookie's not gonna, the icing's not gonna fall over the cookie. And this will do. You could even add sprinkles to it if you want to. See those air bubbles? I'm gonna pop it. Yeah, this is not my favorite type of royal icing, but it will work in a pinch. You can use sprinkles and decorate it however you want. Once this does harden, you can decorate on top of it if you want to. You can probably even use edible images on here if you wanted to, and it would work out perfectly. So there you have a nice decorated cookie using store-bought icing, cookie icing. Just know that when you're piping it, it's gonna be a little bit harder on your hands because it doesn't have that nice fluidness to it. So keep that in mind. If you're gonna be piping a bunch of cookies, it's probably not the best route to go, but it will get the job done. Okay, so the next royal icing that I want to use is my classic go-to regular icing. This one is made using the Wilton powdered meringue powder. This one is the one that I like using the most, so let's get this in a piping bag. And the reason why I colored it was because I wanted to make sure that I remembered which one was which. The consistency of it is going to be a lot more smoother and a little bit more softer. And usually when I'm flooding cookies like this, I don't use two different royal icings. I just use my flooding icing, and I use that to pipe around it and on the inside. And don't worry if you didn't pipe it in a perfect circle, because after you're done flooding it, you're gonna use your scribe tool to even it out. Now we have the two other royal icings left. This one is the one that's made with pasteurized eggs. And let me just remind you that both of these recipes are exactly the same. The only difference is that this one is used with a cracked egg and this one is used with carton eggs. And don't worry, I'm going to be using all of this royal icing for upcoming cookies that I'm going to be doing for friends and family. So no icing is going to go to waste. The icing is just a little bit different than my regular go-to icing. It has a little bit more of a runny consistency. I use these if I run out of meringue powder. I've used this recipe many times and it works, and I really like the flavor of it. It works well. The consistency is great and it decorates nicely, and you could even use this for piping cookies too, like decorations. It works just as good, and the flavor is not much different either. Let's go ahead and get that scribe tool going. Get all around that cookie. The only difference in this recipe is you get a little bit more air bubbles and you have to work with it a little bit more, because even though it works really well, it still has a couple of issues that I haven't been able to smooth out yet. It works a little bit differently because it has actual egg whites and not the meringue powder in it. So that's something to think about if you are a beginner cookie decorator and you want less of a headache. You might want to consider using the meringue powder recipe. It just works out so much faster and easier. But if you do want to use the egg white recipe, this is my second go-to. It works just as good. You just gotta have a little bit more patience with it, but it does taste great and it works just as well. I've also used this as a drizzle over my spritz cookies, and it works perfectly for that too. If you want your glaze to kind of be noticed and seen, then you could use this instead of a glaze on your spritz cookies. Let me show you what it looks like using the non-pasteurized eggs. There wasn't a whole lot of air bubbles in that one. Even though there was a lot of air bubbles inside of the royal icing before I put it in the bag, once I put it in the bag, the bubbles just kind of like went away. And once I piped it onto the cookie and used my scribe tool to evenly coat my cookie, all of those bubbles just disintegrated. I didn't even have to tap my cookie. It is a little bit more loose, so you do have to work with it a little bit more with the edges of the cookie to make sure it doesn't fall off the cookie. But I didn't have to tap my cookie to get any air bubbles out. So in my opinion, the one using the egg white from an egg shell works a lot better than using the carton. It does change the texture in it a little bit. I use the same exact ingredients, the same amounts, The only difference was that one was from an egg and one was from the carton. And you can also do a sifter consistency with that icing just by adding a little bit more powdered sugar or not adding water. And you can pipe on top of your cookies to decorate with. Okay, so there we have it. We have all of our 4 different royal icings here. All we need to do now is just take a look at them side by side and show you the difference in consistency. And then we're gonna go ahead and let them dry, and then we'll come back and look at them and see how they set. Okay guys, that's gonna be it for this video. If you did like this video, please consider hitting that like button. It really helps me out and my channel. And also drop down a comment down below if you have any constructive criticism that will help me out in the future as well. I also invite you to subscribe. It is free, and I also want to thank those that have subscribed and have stayed subscribed. It really means a lot to me. And that's gonna be the end of the video. I thank you guys so much. I love you guys, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.